The earth itself can no longer tolerate what human beings are doing to it. It's like the earth has the flu and just is no longer tolerating the garbage.
We're at a crossroads now. We all, as a human race, have to pick the right choice. Otherwise, God can do a reset.
Shut up, be quiet, and focus on God. Love is worth the risk. Love is risky business.
Next year, we could have a lot of things happen in regards to alien activity, and you better expand your mind because you're not going to be able to handle it.
Could you share, after this phase of turmoil, this paradise on earth, what do we have to look forward to there? I now have a weekly newsletter where you can receive behind-the-scenes updates about the podcast, sneak peeks into our upcoming guests, along with highlights and inspiring quotes from each episode. Use the link to sign up. This is going to be our Fireside Chat number 5, and I am so honored and excited to be here today with Bill Tortorella, Angie Fenimore, Howard Storm, and Serumaga. I invited them here today because I've interviewed each one of them previously about their near-death experiences, and each one of them was shown a vision of potential futures for Earth. And I would really like to dive into that topic today and just hear a little bit more about their perspective on where we're heading and what we can do to ensure the best possible future for humanity. So first, I'd like to welcome Howard L., Bill, and Angie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
And we can go ahead and start with our first question. Could you share briefly what you were shown about the future events in your near-death experience? Howard, do you want to go first?
Okay. My near-death experience was with Jesus, and he only answered questions that I asked. I asked him about the future. He made it clear to me that God was very unhappy with the past 2,000 years because there was an event 2,000 years ago that was supposed to dramatically change the future. And it's pretty well spelled out in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John what that event was about and how human beings are supposed to behave. So he showed me 2 futures. There may be more, but he showed me 2. Because I asked him about the future, so he said, this is what God wants. Worldwide conversion. That would be everybody on this planet to the way we were created to be from the beginning, the way God created us, which is to be loving, kind, compassionate, generous people. And then he said, let's go there. So we went there, and I could talk for hours about what he showed me in the future of the way people are going to behave, which is radically different than the way it is now. This is what God wants. This is what God is hoping for. Let me just summarize that with, relatively speaking, it's heaven on earth, paradise on earth, the future that he showed me. Unbelievably wonderful and beautiful. The alternative to that is that Jesus didn't say it, this is my own words, God's going to hit the reset button. He didn't tell me how, but he said there'll be a complete collapse of the everything electrical in the world. There'll be no banking, no military, no police, no communications, no automobiles. Anything that relies on electricity will be kaput. He didn't tell me why. One thing that I have concluded might be like a solar storm, which could do it, and scientists talk about the dangers of a huge solar storm, wipe out everything electrical. As a consequence, there'll be total chaos, and very quickly gangs will form, and there's ample guns. There's more guns in the United States than there are people, actually. And they'll go around and they will kill and murder without mercy for a can of food, for a quart of gasoline, kerosene, paint thin or whatever, and they will destroy all civilization as we know it, and only a remnant of people who have been wise enough and prepared enough to avoid these gangs will survive, and they will be the foundation for this new paradise on earth. So those are the two features that were shown. I like to talk about the first one, and people always want to hear about the second one because, Mad Max movies, which is what it sort of resembles. So of course, it was much worse than a Mad Max movie. That was almost decent compared to what I was shown. Those are much more popular entertainment than people wanting to hear about everybody living in peace and love and harmony. So I tried to keep it succinct, and we can talk more about it later.
Thank you, Howard. Does anyone want to jump in next?
Well, I think it's interesting that Howard said that you were only given answers to questions you asked. And that's the way it was for me too. So everything that I saw about the future was while I was traveling back to my body. And I had attempted suicide. And so I went to a place of darkness. And as soon as I saw what would happen to my children, what I was shown by Christ, what would happen to my children without me, that's when I opted back in. And suddenly I was above this dark plane surrounded by angels. And I asked the question, what is this? And then I was told, well, they're helping you, and they have been, which led to being shown, what was happening on the planet. But mostly everything that I was shown was about me and how to come back and do this life well, But I was shown that we don't get past the year 2015 without a tipping point, a shift happening. And I saw this happen in 2013, which is about the time I saw you last, Howard. It was about that time where suddenly these conversations were part of the mainstream. It was no longer hidden away spirituality. Something's wrong with you if you're a spiritual person. We could talk openly. So I was shown that the world, it's like the earth itself is, and not even like, it actually is a living thing, and a living organism in and of itself, and that it can no longer tolerate what human beings are doing to it and upon it, just like in the space of, it's like all these things, all of our actions have a memory that is actually a creation of spirit. And then once it's spoken or acted upon, spirit, physical, and light or darkness. And all of this is upon the earth, infecting the earth. And like I like to say, it's like the earth has the flu and just is no longer tolerating the garbage,
Yeah, I have a combination of the two of you. And the things that kind of stood out to me about what you said, and they're similar, is the fact that it was only the things that I asked about. Even before I had my experience, you think when you think about mortality, you think, okay, when I die, I'm going to ask God about this, that, and the other. And when I actually had my experience, everything was prepared. My guides were prepared to show me the questions to those specific things that I asked. And some of those things were about the world. Some of them were about the ugliness of the world, but some of them were also about, what the potential of the world is. And you said that as well, that in 2015, you felt that there was going to be a shift. 2015 is when I had my experience. So that year is significant for me. The things that I saw in general were not only about the future of events that would unfold, but some of the same of what you said, where it's more that regardless of the events that unfold, there is a mental, emotional, and spiritual preparation that we're undertaking right now. We're in a time where a lot of these things were taboo years ago to talk about. I know for me, it took me 7 years to even talk about my experience. And if we look back at ancient times, whether it's indigenous people or in the Bible, it used to be accepted. If you said, "Oh, I saw a being, I saw an angel of light,
Yeah.
I saw something that is not of this world," and it was accepted, and wisdom was brought forward that helped to advance the world. And so right now, my belief is that we're going through a kind of a recollection to be more aligned with, like you said, the earth, because the earth is a living organism. I also got that same thing as well. And that, but we're misaligned, and we're in a time right now, not only astrologically, but also just spiritually, where our soul is trying to realign with the world in order to create that good potential future that we have instead of the negative potential future. And some of the negative things that I saw included, and what I was told was that we are in a dystopian society right now, but we have the potential to come out of the dystopian society if we start embracing and shifting our minds to accept some of these otherworldly things that actually do happen and are actually real life, not this, what we're perpetrating as life by this matrix-like existence.
I had my NDE in 1994, and my NDE is extremely close to Howard's. I was actually shown, I wrote about this in 2000. I have several books out. And in 2002, I had my first book published. And, it was funny when Howard brought up the Mad Max thing. That's how I explained it out in my book. I explained one of the visions, the outcomes that they showed me. It was beyond Mad Max, like Howard said, but I actually saw the outcomes. So, and Howard, I think you might have too, because you said it was beyond that. I saw cities burning. I saw terrible things happening. We're at a point in life. We're at a crossroads now where we could decide. We could decide which direction that we want this world to go into. Everybody has their own choices in life. We have to make right here. We all, and I'm not just talking about us, we all as a whole, as a human race, have to pick the right choice. Otherwise, it's possible God could do a reset. That's a very big possibility that I believe in my heart. I believe that we could just totally destroy ourselves if we stay on this plane that we're on right now. The world is residing on a very, very, very negative plane. And if it stays in that direction, we are going to be in deep, deep, deep trouble. In other words, diseases, famine. I have it in my book, Howard, people killing each other for water and food. Same exact thing. It's amazing that you said that. That's why when you said it, chills are running down my arms, and my hair on my arms were standing up. And I think that if we come together as one, and this is hard to say nowadays, especially with things moving at the rate it moves today, and people sometimes change their mind on a daily basis of how our future is going to be. But we have to bring the world together through kindness, through spirituality, through gifting of love to each other. I was a paramedic in the 70s, and I believe I was, in my near-death experience, I believe one of the reasons why I was shown all this stuff is because all of that service that I did on a daily basis. I was out doing, in some areas when I was working, I was doing CPR on people every single day, trying to bring people back. And I brought quite a few back. I was very, very fortunate in life to do that. But what we're getting at, because that's getting a little bit off track here, is that I'm very close to what Howard said on there, because they actually showed me the utopia side. And I saw this euphoric beauty with people helping each other, working together in the society that was so advanced that we should be ascending to that plane right now, and we're not.
Mm-hmm.
So there's changes that have to be made. And it's all going to start with simple things. People think an act of kindness is not enough, but believe me, one act begets another and another and another. And if we could all start working on that vision, I think that it could be a wonderful, I think Earth could be a utopia. Earth is a living, breathing spirit. We live because of Mother Earth. We drink from her veins, her rivers. We get the oxygen from our trees. Without the earth, we would cease to exist,
Mm-hmm.
period. So the utopia that I've seen was a wonderful place. People living in harmony. I know right now that's hard to grasp because of the things that are going on in this world. And we're getting closer to the other edge. That's why it's so important that we all that's had these kind of experiences stand up and talk about it. I think if this word can get out, if we could give of ourselves, if we could show love to one another and help with kindness, like I said before, a small act of kindness gets a lot. And people think, well, that's not enough. Well, that's a beginning. And from there, we could grow and grow and grow. And that's it as far as the two outcomes that I was shown.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for everyone. You've already touched on this a little bit, but we'll see if there's anything else that you'd like to add. Question number 2 is, many near-death experiencers and spiritual teachers say that we are about to experience massive world events such as societal collapse, natural disasters, and wars. Do you think this will happen? And if so, why are we experiencing all of this turmoil?
Just briefly, it is happening. That is what's happening. You know, I picked everything up, but I moved to Alaska, to a remote island in Alaska to separate myself, you know, so that I can breathe, so that I can have that spirituality. But, you know, we are already experiencing that. I have a neighbor here who just went back down south to get a knee replacement. He came up from San Francisco and he said, people roll their windows down. They leave their glove compartments open and their trunks open so that their car windows won't get shattered. That's dystopian. It is where we are. And, you know, it's going to get a lot worse if we don't do something about it, you know?
We're at a crossroads of what's going on now. And we've been at a crossroads for about middle way through the pandemic. And we've been in stages. So the beginning of the pandemic was one stage and was supposed to be a reset. And we got off track again by whatever forces that be, or, you know, organizations that be, or whatever. And in the middle of the pandemic, we kind of got back to certain things again. And now we're going to another stage. And in 2024, if we don't experience a certain enlightenment at this point, after the things that we have seen collectively, and after the weird things that have happened since a few years ago, if we're still at the point where our minds are stuck or stubborn, then there's almost no hope for us at this point going forward. So I feel as though a lot of these transitions and events that are happening are to transform the collective mind as well, to being prepared to see some of these things. Next year, we could have a lot of things happen in regards to alien activity, okay? We could have a lot of things happen in regards to just world systems coming up soon. And but if we don't shift, I appreciate the fact that you moved to a remote place and that you're delving into focusing more on calmness and spirituality in your life, because I've told people that besides preparing, that's probably one of the biggest preparations that everybody needs to do now is to delve into their spirituality, delve into their whatever keeps them grounded, calm, focused, able to make rational decisions and move forward, because we're at a crossroads right now. And in this year, we'll start seeing some of these events start to tick up in regard closer to the end of the year. So that's what I'm getting or feeling.
Okay, I went on a 8-day silent retreat at a Jesuit retreat center here in
Mm,
Ohio, and
It's great.
my advisor was a nun, and she was very sweet and very quiet. And one day her personality completely changed, and she really let me have it and told me that my mission was to give people hope and not fear. And I really think that God was speaking through this nun, this sweet, very quiet, previously submissive nun. So that's what I try to do, is to put our hope in the future. It's interesting that there's 2.5 billion Christians in the world, and generally speaking, they all say the Lord's Prayer frequently, if not daily. I'm trying to give people hope in is that if we learn God's will, which is in a book called the Bible, that's the instruction manual. It's a book of wisdom, a book of spirituality. To read it any other way other than wisdom and spirituality is to not understand it at all, or to misuse it, misinterpret it, and abuse it, which people do, is not knowing God's will. God's will is for this place to be a paradise. God wants this to be heaven on earth. And it's going to happen because God is going to make it happen. The frustrating thing about it all is that God gave us a great gift, free will. It was spoken a little bit earlier about choices. We all have choices that Angie talked about, and that's what free will is. We're not dogs, we're not cows, we're not dolphins. We can actually conceptualize things and make choices. And I thought it was also interesting that Bill talked a lot about kindness, which is critically important. It's so much more important than people have any idea. Being kind to the cashier at the grocery store, being kind to your family, being kind to the person who's giving you a hard way to go when you're trying to get information on the phone about something that, needs to be fixed in, your bank account or something, just the kindness is like a first step towards creating this new world. I want to throw this in real quickly. When Jesus gave me the really bad news that I had to come back to this world and that I couldn't go to heaven, because duh, of course I wanted to go to heaven after he'd shown it to me. Anyone would. I said, what do you want me to do? And Jesus's answer was, quote, love the person you're with. I was stupid then, still stupid, but hoping to get a little wiser. I said to Jesus, quoting myself, okay, I'll do that, but what do you want me to do? I thought, oh yeah, well, go ahead and love people. Yeah, no problem. Well, I didn't know what love was. I'm still learning it. That's the curriculum, by the way, of the world. If you want to know what the course on life on this planet is, I can tell you what the course is. It's to learn how to love. And that would be God's love, unconditional love, putting people's needs and interests ahead of your own. That's what real love is. And that's God's love for us. So I have been trying to promote love, kindness, compassion, all this end of the world stuff. Fascination is feeding into the fear factor. Now, God does give warnings. If you read the Old Testament, he's constantly warning the Israelites. If you do this, it's going to be a disaster. And guess what? It was. He's constantly warning them. He's not trying to instill fear in them. He's just trying to tell them, these are the consequences of your choices, of your actions. And so we actually have control of our destiny. One more thing I said to Jesus back when I was arguing against me coming back to this world, and my preference was to go to heaven. I said, how could you send me to that world that's full of evil and anger and hate and cruelty? And he said, yes, it is. It's true. It's also full of love and goodness and beauty and joy. And he said, what's in your heart is what you will find. So and you know what? Strangely enough, Jesus was 100% right. What is in your heart is what you will find. And I seek love, I seek beauty, I seek goodness. And you know what? Almost all the time, that's what I find. Every once in a while, I bump into a situation where it's not so apparent. Like I'm wearing my Cairo sweatshirt, which is a organization where we do prison ministry. I spent 5 days, 12-hour days with a group of the worst felons in the state of Ohio. I was scared when I went there, and they were really scary looking guys. And that was quite intentional because that's what you got to do when you're in prison, be scary. And at the end of a week with those guys, I had a total conversion to them. On the last day, me and those men that I was terrified of were hugging, kissing each other on the cheek, and telling each other how much we loved each other. There is beauty and goodness in love, and even in the scariest people.
That's what I mean now. That's an act of kindness.
Yeah.
That's it. Beautiful.
Something I'd like to add to that is,
Yes.
I was having this conversation with this man at a park. We were strangers, and very quickly it got very deep. And he was a vet of World War II, and he said, the world is just awful, and it's getting worse. I see nothing hopeful. And I said, well, we could take that view, or if we just turn that on its ear and look at it a little bit differently, it's also a great opportunity to make a difference, and something I was shown was a smile. One smile can have impact worldwide for generations. One
He
smile.
gets another.
Yeah.
Smile is a gift of love.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. That when you smile at someone or at the world, basically, you're gifting love out to that person. And you'll see when you smile a lot, the response that you get from people is so overwhelmingly wonderful. It touches you inside.
You said you had 3 guides. I also had 3 guides, but I'm always intrigued when other NDErs have similar situations. Can you share more about your 3 guides?
Well, I had 3 guides, one guardian that when I was taken, I would remember the night I died, I remember physically leaving my body, and I hear, yes, Bill, you're home in the light of God. And my name is Antonia, and she was one of my guides. I'm responsible for bringing you home and responsible for bringing you in. She explained it to me. She was I call her, I just thought about this the other day, even though this happened 30 years ago. I should call her my travel guardian. She was the one responsible for that. My other guide, I believe, was my passed away brother that came to me. And, that was wonderful. And then I had another guide of intuition. My third guardian, I call him the guardian angel of intuition, that was announced as Orin to me. The beauty about this whole thing was the connection with me and the 3 guides and what they brought me to. I mean, they told me about life. They told me about death. I learned about intuition, choices, paths, enlightenment. I've learned so much wisdom in that time I was there. It was wonderful. It was the most wonderful feeling in my life. And I believe that your guides come to you as you remember. So they make you comfortable, whether they look like that in the spirit world or not, which they don't. We all, I figured in heaven, we're all part of this magnificent light of God. And we all feel almost as one, but at the same time individual. But we have one feeling. The feeling that I had was of deep, deep, can't even unexplainable love. The love was so wonderful. And that's what I had over there. And like I said, the three guides took me through a whole ride through heaven. And then I was told I had to return. And I thought I was going to stay. I really did. And I asked, why are you returning? My book is called 9 Principles of Enlightenment, the Wisdom of the Light. The 9th principle of enlightenment, the wisdom of the light. They taught me these 9 beautiful, wonderful principles. That's where I talk about the choices, the intuition, the gifts we get from God on almost a daily basis throughout our life.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say in response to the second question, or should we move on to the third?
I just want to add that I saw that 3 was significant, that it's very much like a table with 4 legs can wobble, and a table with 2 won't stand, but a table with 3 legs, like that, that's common to see, like in 3s, to see spirit guides, to, the Godhead, like it's very common that's how that's like structure, spiritual structure.
Thank you so
Wow.
much. Thank you. And Bill, I loved hearing a little bit more of your story there. But let's move on to the third question. And again, you guys have already touched on this. There's a little bit of overlap between the questions, but the third one is, many people feel helpless in the face of the corrupt powers that are controlling the world right now. How much of a difference can one person make?
Okay, I'd like to jump on that. And this really goes nicely with something that Bill said and other people have suggested. I asked Jesus, he told me to love the person I was with, and we had a big argument about that. And he explained to me that if you love one person, that they're going to take that love and bring it to another person, and that person's going to bring it to another person, and it's going to have what you might call a ripple effect. We'll never know it. And that's good. We don't need to know. But every act of love that we do has a ripple effect. And that's not just with people, it's also with animals and plants and with the whole planet. So I said to Jesus, because I was being a jerk, how many people are in on this in the world? And he said, millions. And I said, don't you realize there's billions of people on the earth and you've only got a few million? And he said, well, we also have billions of angels and they have powers and they have an influence in the world. And I said, okay, so you got some millions of people and you got some billions of angels. I don't think it's going to work. Now, Jesus hit me with the nuclear bomb. This is what he said, and I quote, "It's God's plan." I couldn't think of anything to say to that. When someone says to someone with authority, and even Jesus got some authority since he is God, it's God's plan, and I was like dumbstruck. Oh, okay, it's God's plan. So my near-death experience was in 1985, so I've been living with it for a number of decades. And I'm still going with it's God's plan, and I want to be part of God's plan, and not, if anyone wants to, make me emperor of the world, I'll be happy to accept, even though I'm old, and I've got all kinds of ideas of how to make the world a better place, and I'll set up all kinds of laws, and I will be a supreme dictator, and everybody will do exactly what I say. And if you vote for that, you are a complete idiot. You know, because I've got my opinions, I got my likes and dislikes. You know, I like chocolate. Not everybody likes chocolate. I like, I like coconut ice cream. Not everybody likes coconut ice cream. We're all unique individuals, and as long as I keep it between me and my wife, and we don't agree on everything either, by the way, you know, I think we can get along. But the point is that there's only one plan. You know, Joe Biden doesn't have it. Donald Trump doesn't have it. Vladimir Putin doesn't have it. There's just one plan, and it's God's plan. And like I said before, it's in black and white in the instruction manual. Look it up for yourself. And if you go to it humbly and prayerfully, you'll understand it. And if you don't go to it humbly and prayerfully, you won't get nothing out of it. It'll just be a lot of gobbledygook to you. So anyways, the plan is that one person can make a difference, but you take one and add another and another and another and another. All of a sudden, scientists have found that one little thing can change the whole outcome. Scientists now know this. There's the hundreds monkey experiment, which I won't go into. People now know that when small chemical reactions take place between atoms and things like that, if they're being observed, they act differently than they were not being observed. And this is weird. This is all like weird stuff. One little loving act can make a huge difference. And I would like to think, let me just acknowledge, I've been contacted by people who, both in real person and on emails, and people who are thinking. And I hope and I pray that my acts of kindness have made a difference, because as Angie, I'm sure, is, it cuts pretty strong opinions about. And by the way, when they did a study at the University of Connecticut with people who survived, they all unanimously agreed, really, really bad idea, and they would never do it again. I would like to think that I've made a little difference now and again.
I think that Howard said it extremely well, as animated as that was. I think that was perfectly said. I was wondering how that conversation was going to go, considering corruption and, we're all different. We all have different opinions, but we have a similar experience, and there is one God, one source of energy that goes through all of us. And that's the only thing that I would add to that but yes, absolutely. And we've all seen different forms of corruption. When Bill was talking, I was intrigued because, with the 3 guides, and, I was put through the Akashic records, some call the Hall of Records, and you see various different potential outcomes of the earth. It all leads back to one thing: having love enough to make a decision to do something, and having love enough to make a decision to say something when you need to say something. So that's what I learned about certain corruption. Some of the corruption I saw had to do with, like, I don't know if this will be bleeped out, Melissa, but like, I saw things having to do with or. And those of you that are nodding your head, maybe offline, I'd love to talk to you about that, because okay, when you go through a near-death experience, you come back and you're trying to tell people are like, "What did you see?" And you're, "Well, it was
And
kind of
you don't know how to communicate it before
right."
there is a distinction for it before we've experienced some of this. I'd
Right.
love to talk to you about aliens too. Like,
Yeah.
like new for me. I was one of those that poo-pooed that, and thought, oh, the crazies, right? Until I had my own experience, and then
Yeah. So it's just amazing, the commonality and even though it's very different, there's some common things. But yeah, again, Howard, that was perfectly shared.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Agreed. Right now, what's going on? It's like there are no answers.
Exactly.
and none of it, you know?
Yeah, in 2022 was when I actually started sharing my story, and it was in November of 22. And that was after 7 years of my guide pretty much poking at me saying, "Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Now? Now?" And so finally I did. And when I went to kind of rectify some of those odd things that we seem to have collectively seen about the world, I pretty much said, "Hey, we're about to have a lot of weird stuff happen, and you better expand your mind because you're not going to be able to handle it. We're going to have, some of the events have already taken place, like with, like you were saying before, Angie, alien disclosure. We're going to have all of these." That was right before we started seeing the silver spheres, and then it just got worse. Train wrecks and chemical spills and all of these things happening, and it's a little bit died down now, but it's going to ramp up again, and so it's a lot to when you get information through your near death experience, and maybe you guys can also speak to this, is that first you have to go through a process of not only processing it yourself, but figuring out how to communicate all of this because it's just so out there as well.
There was nobody who had an experience coming back from, and it wasn't even as bad attempt. I was successful,
Wow.
and back in. So there was no language.
I think I might have had maybe some unevolved feelings towards just even life forms around me. Like, I'm not really a huge pet person. Pets do like me, or animals seem to like me, but I'm kind of indifferent. But in my near-death experience, one of my guides, similar to what Bill was saying about the one that was instructing him, my guide was in the Akashic records, was telling me instructions about various different things and educating me on various different aspects of the universe, and was telling me to merge, periodically with different other life forms. So I was told to merge with a tree and with a lily and a fish. And I was actually, my consciousness was put in those things.
Mhm.
And then I was told basically that all life forms are conscious. And like, for example, like trees and plants, to respect them, to respect other life forms of the earth, because we have a connection to them, even though we don't see them because we kind of go about our ego world, that we need to have reverence. And even the Bible says to have reverence for these things because they're there to sustain us and to support us in our life. So, yes, you go through a time where you get educated, not reprimanded, but educated so that you can kind of self-correct and make sure that you practice something that is important for your soul.
Mhm.
That's interesting that you say that about merging, something that when I came back from my near death experience, and it stayed with me, and I can still see this way, from time to time, but I could see on a molecular level, and I could see in particular trees, but the molecules, we are trees serving you, serving God.
Mm-hmm.
We are flowers serving you, serving God. Like
Right.
by choice and by intentional organization.
That's
Um,
fascinating.
We're talking about three guides. I live with three guides in addition to my wife. Here's the youngest of them.
At least yours is quiet. Mine was barking up a storm before my
Uh,
wife came in.
This is a puppy. His name's Davy.
Oh,
The French have a term that I love called joie de vie, joy of life. And if you've ever been to France, you can see that they really know how to enjoy life. And one of the things that this particular guide, who's 6 months old, and his can be a real terror at times, is he is full of joie de vie, joy of life. He enjoys everything. I mean, he wants to get into my coffee and into my, soda pop. And I mean, he just he just look, oh, how he loves me and how I love him. All right, my little sure steel. You know, I brought him up on my lap because we've been talking about connecting with nature. I've done a lot of wood carving,
Oh, excuse me.
and okay, now I'm going to be extremely vulnerable. If you really connect with the wood that you're carving, and believe me, you need to when you're carving. I'm not talking about just whacking away, but I'm talking about, carefully with, a gouge and a mallet, if you really connect with the wood begins to speak to you, the trees. And I have had carvings that I'm working on literally speak to me. And it's like,
I believe that's true.
oh, I can't believe it. My carving just talked to me.
Yep.
I believe that's
Oh,
true. That's how we're
yeah.
supposed to connect.
Thank
The
you.
birth mother
You-
to humanity, the earth. Earth is our birth mother
Yeah.
of humanity. She does not belong to us. We belong to her.
Right.
Mhm.
Mother Earth connects us all.
Yes.
We are one race, and it's called the human race.
Mhm.
And that's how we are one with God. When we understand that in enlightenment, that we're one race as a human race, we all belong to God. We all should live like God, in God's path. God did not say, even Jesus said, you were renowned on the Bible, which is wonderful. I love speaking to people that are very good with the Bible. One time he said to me, if he does not follow me, in other words, he doesn't believe in Jesus, let's say a person doesn't believe in Jesus. Jesus said in the Bible, he who doesn't believe in me, as long as he believes in the things that I say and do,
Yeah.
that is living God. That means he doesn't say he doesn't believe in Jesus, but he's still living like God.
Yeah.
So that's necessity. That is very important in the human race for it to succeed and for us to get past this ascension we're in right now. We're supposed to be evolving, not going the opposite way.
Amen. Amen.
I mean it. It's so much that we could do as one person. People don't think that was the original question from just prior to this. There's so much we could do, and that's by connecting with other people to let people know we were given a job to do. We're supposed to be messengers, and our message to people should be that as one, to live as God would live, and that's when the world will become that utopia that we talked about earlier. I believe, I mean, there's so many deep things that I received up there. I remember speaking about all this with my doctor, and he said, Bill Tortorella, he said, a lot of people get to find God in life. He said, you were one fortunate person to get to meet him. And that resonated in me. And I believe I was sent back, and I was told by the angels that you was sending you back to relay this message. And it's not that there's literally thousands of messengers today, because look at the medical field today compared to what it was 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
We could bring people back. I mean, they bring people back, thousands of people a week that are dead.
Yeah.
That's been, they fill their heart full of epinephrine. They give them 3 shots with a defibrillator, and all of a sudden their spirit jumps back in their body.
Yeah.
So they bring people back that have already. There's a lot of NDErs out there that's only had that experience. A lot of those kind of experiences happen on an operating table. When someone dies on the operating table and they're hovering over, watching the doctors work on them on the table itself, but they're dead. So it's important that we all learn to live our message, and our message is to relate that of God's message, is to be in that light, live in that light, do the right thing, be in kindness, do the best we possibly can. Try not to judge people as you would not want to be judged yourself. I mean, some people are outright wrong. We all know that, but
Can we add
You know.
forgiveness to that list?
forgiveness is tops on the list. Forgiveness is tops on the list. Forgiveness and kindness are the two most important things. Forgiveness is kindness and service. Then our will and openness of our choices. That's the one thing that God gives us. God gave us that ability that we could choose. When we're younger, we all make little mistakes here and there. And there's nothing wrong with the mistakes, because as long as you learn by your mistakes,
Right. Amen. Amen.
amen, you learn by your mistakes, and then you go forward, and then you teach others, try to teach others anyway, not to make the same mistake.
Yeah.
In that line.
One of the things that helps with forgiveness is, and I had a different perspective about this before my NDE, was that basically when you have after you have an NDE, you realize after you go through your life review and you go through the Hall of Records, Akashic Records, whatever you call it, you realize it's not that serious. Everybody's on a journey, and you realize that if somebody does something wrong to you, or even if you wrong somebody, either way, it's just a part of a journey and a lesson that's refining the soul. So after my experience, it was a little easier to see and forgive, because you see that we're just all on that path of education and
Mhm.
exploration, and it's all because even though we're living this particular life, we're not living it just for this existence. We're living it for for our entire soul. Our soul goes beyond this particular existence. So that makes it a lot easier in regards to forgiveness.
That's right. Like, forgiveness is a beautiful thing. It's something we shouldn't even have. Forgiveness, jealousies, all kinds of things like that should not be in our being.
And
Forgiveness is something we should do on a daily basis.
yeah, and
One.
you all probably have had as well, but I've had a lot of people ask me, or people email saying, "Man, I wish I could have a near-death experience without death."
Oh, dying
No,
part.
brilliant.
And I think that I think that's essentially part of the reason why we come back, is to help people to kind of cut out the trauma and the death part,
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
share with them about the transformation part, because that's basically what it comes down to.
Near-death experience is not required,
Right.
actually. You know,
Exactly. It's not,
And teach them they never die.
Mhm.
We should teach people they never die. They live through eternity in love and light.
That's right.
And your awareness. I don't know about you all, but what I felt was my awareness was, I think we use, I don't know, I heard this once before, that we use about 6% of our mind's capability here.
Yeah.
When I have to ask this question to all of you. When you were on the other side, did you believe your mind was so much more open?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think we might use 80% of our minds on the other side of
Yeah.
our abilities. I mean, of our mind. It was amazing. I mean,
and if
it
you
was
think about
wonderful.
a near-death experience, that's a short amount of time.
Exactly.
Short amount of time. What
Yeah.
happens if I'm gone for an hour?
Mhm.
You know?
Right. And, it's true when you read spiritual texts that say in the blink of an eye, things happen. It really does. It really is in the blink of an eye. And you see changes, you see the whole universe, you see all of these things that we can't even convey here on Earth.
I'm gonna jump in, guys, and this conversation is so amazing and so beautiful. And I love hearing you guys share. But Elle, you said something that is a really nice lead into our next question. You talked about how everything can change in the blink of an eye. And I recently spoke to a near-death experiencer who said that there's multiple different future timelines that Earth could take, and one of them is that we could change and make that move to a paradise on Earth in the blink of an eye if the conditions were right. And so that leads into our next question, which is, what would it take for humanity to bypass all of the turmoil and move into a smooth transition into paradise on earth? Is that even possible at this point?
Yes, I'd like to jump on that. One of the great obstacles we face in life is we have a lot of traumatic experiences, some of which we don't even remember, that go back to our earliest childhood. When we came into the world, we were loving children of God with one great need, greater than oxygen, greater than food or water, was the need to be loved. And hopefully, for most of us, if not all of us, we got some of that love, in our mother's arms and in our father's arms. But things changed because we've had a very dysfunctional world for a long time. I was once giving a talk in an IONS meeting, and I said I came from a dysfunctional family, and someone shouted out, "We've all come from dysfunctional families." It's true. All families are dysfunctional to some degree, some greater, some lesser. But anyways, being bullied in school, kindergarten or seventh grade or whatever, blah, blah, blah. We've all had our traumas. We've all learned to hide our love, to guard our love, to be very, very untrusting of other people. And in my life, I've been conned, I've been taken, I've been rode hard and put up with by a lot of people trying to do good. But love is worth the risk. Love is risky business. And the foundation of our love is God's love for us. And people that don't connect with God, which I make a big practice of connecting with God regularly. One of the ways that I do that is I go to church not to be entertained. I don't go there for entertainment. I go there to worship God. And there are times in church when tears are pouring out of my eyes, and I can hardly sing the hymns or say the prayers because I'm so stirred by the love of God inside. But in my daily practice of connecting with God, which means shut up, be quiet, and focus on God. And I'm not asking God for anything. I'm asking God for love, God's love. And if we connect with God and seek God and don't seek things from God, prayer is good. Any kind of prayer is good. Pray for a parking space. Pray to get your checkbook in the black and out of the red. I mean, pray for everything. But the best prayer is to just pray to connect with God. And God is love. So when you ask for God's love, you're asking for God. And when you feel in your heart how much you're loved, and it's almost unbearable how much we're loved. You have a foundation for everything. You have a foundation for joy in your life no matter what happens. You have a foundation for kindness no matter what happens. You have a foundation for love no matter what happens. And you have the courage to risk it. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, maybe you created a ripple. Maybe the love that you gave to someone who took complete advantage of you and returned your love and kindness by doing something wrong to you. Maybe someday they're going to remember. Maybe someday that's going to, well, I remember that Howard Storm jerk who I got $8,000 out of. I remember him. And you know what? He was so kind to me. He never came after me, and he knew what I did. The consequences of loving don't have to be immediate. You don't have to go, oh, I scored one today, no. And you know what? It's not my love. Human love is this big. God's love is bigger than my arms will stretch out. I try to operate, function. My foundation is the love that God has for me, and it's wider than the ocean, and there's no limit to it. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm tapping into that love. Jesus was asked by the then attorneys, the scribes. They were the law keepers primarily. What must I do to have eternal life? Which Jesus' answer was, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. You know, Jesus wasn't looking for ego gratification. You know, he said, love God, love your neighbor, and number 3, love yourself. How
Mhm.
can I love Howard Storm? Because I know what I am. I know painfully what I am and what I've done. How can I love that critter? Well, because God loves me so much. And so when people tell me, I've never felt God, I've never spoken to God, da, 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 I tell them, go to a quiet place, whatever your sacred place is. It could be by a river, by the ocean, on a beach, on a mountain. It could be in your study. It can be in your bed. Whatever is your sacred place, that place, it's got to be a place without distractions. No phone, no voices. Just go in there. If you need a focal point, I think a candle is always a beautiful focal point. Light a candle and just talk to God. And when you're done talking to God, talking at God, when you get done with all that business, get all that stuff out, work it all out, and you've exhausted all that, and you say, okay, I just want your love now, and I'm going to shut up and see what happens. And I'm telling you, I think I know what's going to happen, and it's going to change your life.
I want to answer the second part of the question, add on to what Howard said. Whether or not it will be a smooth transition, it's not going to be a smooth transition because the transition's already started and it has not been, it's been everything other than smooth. So it's
Yeah.
going to continue to be non-smooth, the opposite of smooth. But
Rocky.
right. But what can happen, and what I had gotten information that I had gotten was specifically in the next 5 to 7 years is a major period where we have an opportunity to get our acts together. And Howard said this, but I also say this a lot and telling people that the most important thing that you can do is go within in your spiritual practice, having a spiritual practice every single day, meditating, praying every single day, and making sure that you begin to connect because you should get from the point of needing to go to other people to get that connection and being able to go to God to get that connection, being able to hear from your guides to get that connection. And so the spiritual going in and spiritually making it so that every day you're building up on that, that's going to strengthen you for whatever comes. And the other thing that I tell people is they need to be careful of what they put in their bodies because if you're not careful of what you put in your body is a temple. You can lower your vibration. Things can interfere with that divine order that has been placed in you from birth. So be careful of what you put in your body. Treat your body as best as you can. And it's really hard. I have a sweet tooth. It's super, super, it's super hard.
Me too.
Yeah. So, but do your very best. Everything is intention. Make the effort. And just, you screw up, just get back on the horse, make the effort again. Your body is housing the beautiful soul that is in you. So that's what I say to that.
Take that a step further. Something that, and probably the most profound thing that happened during my near-death experience was that I experienced being in Christ's body in the Garden of Gethsemane and him experiencing my life from beginning to end. And if there is going to be, all transformation happens on a dime, all of it, everything. It's, a lot of work to get to that point, right? But then it's click, always. That's the order of it. And what Christ did for all of us was basically experience our lives as if he was us. And so for me, it was, and remember, had swallowed everything in my medicine cabinet. I thought nobody on this
Wow.
planet could understand what I'd been through. And in that moment, I really got that he did, but that he did it for all of us. So if we are to access this kind of God, it is going to require that we walk a mile in everybody else's moccasins.
Exactly.
We must be willing to experience what others experience. When that happens, if that happens, sex ends that moment. Hunger ends that moment. War ends that in that second. That's what would be required.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things too that one of the guides had said was that the purpose, part of the purpose of our existence is to experience love from a different perspective. And part of experiencing love from different perspectives is understanding other perspectives different than ours
Mhm,
and still
mhm.
acknowledging it and not attacking. There's an NDER that I know who was an atheist before her NDE experience and was just, atheist about a lot of different things that now carries a message that's spiritual messages that she carries and that she conveys, but she would have ridiculed anybody talking about God or Jesus before. And now she's also talking about God, Jesus, and other prophets of other faiths and things like that. So then you have to think, okay, well, why do you share about Jesus? And then also about, she talks about Muhammad and about Buddha and things like that. Well, the bottom line is it leads to all in general a message of love and a message of transformation. And that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is practicing that love and expressing that love through the things that you do and the way that you live your life and the things that you convey. And so if we can appreciate the differences in people as well and focus more on the overall message and the reason that we're all here, then we would also have a better existence and experience that transformation of where things need to go.
Like my kids, I have 5 kids. They call me mom, mother, mama. They all have different names for me. And I answer to all of them.
Hot answer?
Yeah. He hears us regardless of the name by which we know him.
Right.
I don't think there's one thing that we could do to change this because it's already started, like they've explained. We're going to go through a little rocky road here. It's going to be quite big for some people,
Mhm.
and it could be very dangerous. But the one thing I do remember, I remember in my near-death experience, I remember asking the question, how do I teach love? And my answer was, you become love.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I had to learn that because I had never lived a life like that before. But thereafter the near-death experience, then that whole scenario changed my whole way of thinking in
Right.
life. And that's where things like kindness, forgiveness came in and service. For goodness sake, about 3 years ago, I was 68 years old and I don't know, it was 3 or 4 years ago, we're at a water park and here I am, overweight and having a good time with my family. And a guy goes down in a seizure. Now, I haven't been a paramedic since I was 20, but he was bashing his head and everybody was like sort of running away from him. So I ran over to him right away and I folded my legs and laid his head so he wouldn't bang his head into the ground on my legs. And then I took a little wedge and opened his mouth because he was biting off his tongue. And, I held him there until he came out of his seizure. And then everybody was coming to me saying, why did you do that? Why did you do that? I said, because this is what you're supposed to do. And he looked at me and said, you could be sued. And I, I, t- I wasn't worried about being sued. I was worried about doing the kind of service I was supposed to be doing at the time. I know I was trained to do what I did. I mean, we had specific seizure sticks in our unit where we would stick in the side of someone's mouth that would keep a wedge in their mouth so they wouldn't bite their tongue off and swallow it. But, so things like what I'm trying to say is that we can't change this by one little thing at one time, but we could change it by doing one thing, that becoming another and another and another. So the love spreads and spreads and spreads and spreads. So one act of love begets another and another and another, and it builds on that. And that's how I believe we can change that. So that would be my answer. But I'll never forget my asking the question up there, how do you teach love?
Yep.
Mm.
I'd like to add, I served churches for 30 years after I left the university. And one of the things I learned is I can't fix anybody. I can't change anybody. All I can do, if they want it, if they ask for it, is I can help them. So I used to keep a piece of paper in my office with all the agencies. There was agencies for seniors and agencies for abused kids and agencies to find lost animals. I mean, there's all kinds of agencies. And so I felt that my training was theological training. And rarely did people come to me for theological questions, like, can you explain the atonement to me? Which I would be happy to have talked about, but that's not what they want. They had, like, what I got a lot was after people got to know me and began to trust me, they'd come and they'd tell me that their husband beat them up regularly.
Oh,
And there are where I live, a number of agencies that deal with that. Now, in my opinion, that's intolerable. And I would give them the phone number and the name of the agency, and I want you to call them immediately, and they're going to tell you what to do. Because, of course, what I suspect they're going to tell them to do is come to us, get away from him, because women are abused. Because they're loving people, they go back and back, because the husband always, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I did that, and then a couple of weeks later they get beat up again. By the way, my sister's first husband put her in the hospital twice, and she went back to him twice. Finally realized it wasn't working out, gave up. But when I say in the hospital, critically beating her, punching her. Anyways, so I have something at stake in all this. There are lots of helping professions. I had a guy who pulled a gun on me at my son-in-law's house a few blocks from here for no good reason, threatened my life. My initial reaction was to take him on, go for the gun and turn it on and stuff. But that was my initial, fight or flight, emotional reaction. What I did was I was in my car, I took off.
yeah.
I just took off. I drove directly to the local police station. They were not exceedingly helpful with comments like, do you have a videotape of this? No, I don't. Then it's going to be his word against him. Anyways, I pursued it, got the district attorney of the county that I live in to write this guy a very strong letter. He sent me a copy of it, and I was like, whoa. And that man's response was, in a month, he moved away and nobody knows where he went. He just left. He'd lived in that.
Oh, you left town, huh?
He just left town. Anyways, there are agencies in this world who they're professionals and know what we're doing, know what they're doing, and they can do a much better job of resolving these problems and these conflicts than we can. So, you go to them. If you got problems, talk to your attorney. See what the options are. Find out what you can do. Go to the police. Go to the appropriate agency. That's what they're doing. And you know what? A lot of those people, the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the helping professions, they were called by God. People think clergy are the only people called by God. Wrong. Some clergy are not called by God, and they shouldn't be clergy. Trust me, I know a lot of clergy. Some are called by God. Some of the police are called by God. A lot of the people in the helping professions, which I mentioned a few, they were called by God to be a social worker or a counselor. And there's wonderful people out there, and they are waiting to help you. So we don't have to solve everything. You know, there's people working on it. I don't know what to do about the mess in the Gaza. I don't know what to do about that.
No, I don't think we.
I don't think anybody does, but you know what? I'm going to leave that up to some experts because I'm completely at a loss, totally. I just pray about it daily. That's all I do.
That's all we could do on that.
Yeah, and you said the key there, honestly, because that is something that comes up when we think about, everybody has their role, and some people's roles are just to observe and pray. And a lot of things can happen with prayer. Prayer really does work. When people collectively are praying everywhere, we can shift energy, we could shift the, world outcomes, we could shift a lot of things. And sometimes your role is just to observe it, say that shouldn't be, and then pray for a different outcome. And that's perfect. That's just as powerful as somebody on the front line. That is the front line.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I gotta tell you this anecdote. After my near-death experience, everybody told me I was crazy. Don't talk about it. We don't want to hear about it. You should see a psychiatrist. That's all I got from everybody, including my family and all my old friends and stuff. So I didn't know any religious people. And then I remembered I had a student who was a nun. And I liked her. She liked me. I told her I was an atheist, And anyhow, she was very, very gracious to me. So I called her up. Her name was Sister Dolores, and I said, "Sister, I got something I want to tell you." So she sat there in a little habit in my aunt's rocking chair with her hands folded and her, ankles very tight together and, perfect posture, didn't move a muscle. And for 2 hours, I told her what happened. It was just a little bit of my near-death experience.
Right.
And when she was done, she was expressionless. And I said, "Sister," frustrated because there wasn't anything reaction, "what do you think?" And she says, "There's one thing that bothers me a great deal." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Why did it take so long?" What do you mean? Why did it take so long? And she said, "I've known you for 13 years. I prayed for you every day." And she was a sister of Notre Dame and lived in a convent. They were a teaching order. They taught school. Anyways,
Right.
she said, "I had all my sisters pray for you every day. 13 years. Why did it take so long?" No, prayer's not just rattling off something, We pray with persistence and don't let it
It's
go.
on a phone line to heaven.
No, and as Elle said, prayer can change things, but it's work. Prayers work.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
I would love to end with this last question and leave things on more of a positive note for people. Could you share what you saw in your experience about where we're headed after we get through this phase of turmoil and we reach that, Howard? What you've said is God's plan and this is going to happen, this paradise on earth. What do we have to look forward to there?
Well, I'll start. I spent a lot of time in that future with Jesus, and I could talk about it for hours. So there's just a little brief summary. In that people live in complete peace, complete harmony, complete love, and it's the world that God envisioned for humankind before this world was made. We were made before the world was made in God's plan and God's mind. So from my point of view, for millions and millions of years, God's been working on this, and now we're getting close. I don't know how close. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to talk about them. I don't think it's too far away where we're going to, and you can call it heaven on earth, call it paradise, but it's far better than anything people could imagine. If I told you all the gifts that God's going to give us when we create that world, gifts to telepathically travel and communicate all over not just this universe, but the multi-universe, the ability for telekinesis to raise food right before your eyes, watch vegetables and fruits grow right before your eyes, to control the weather through telepathic communications globally. I go on and on and on. We're given such great gifts that this world will be paradise.
So for me, it's just an absence of darkness, like no darkness in thought, action, in desire, in intention, no darkness, just pure light, which is love.
I would say that there'll just be more people smiling than frowning when you're out on the streets, when you're going about your business. There'll be more. I don't know if this happens with any of you, probably so, but you can kind of feel the things around you. You could feel the energy of people and, what's going on with their faces. And sometimes it feels a little prickly. Sometimes I just, it makes you kind of want to just stay in or stay, away at times. There'll be less of that feeling, more of a sense of like just embracing the smiles, embracing you know, that sense of peace between people and in groups.
Well, I believe when we get through this, happiness, like you say, smile. The smile begets the smile, and the smile is a transfer of love. We all know that. And to be at that stage will be the most wonderful plan for all of us to be in. Things could happen on the other side, like a great reset of into enlightenment, which would be even better, where we all live on a plane with love, kindness, helping each other, the giftings. When we gift on to others the teaching of kindness, forgiveness, and service, and that just blossoms and grows. So I think the world could get there. There's got to be a lot of changes made, and we all know that. The world moves much, much too fast right now, probably mostly because of technology. So we have to find a healthy balance where technology could be a good thing and not necessarily take millions of jobs away, but we could create technology to create jobs for people. And that's the things that we should be doing. I mean, that's the heaven on earth that I see. I see that as heaven on earth. People helping each other, gifting of one's love, gifting of one's love to each other. And that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I wanted to end on that note because I think a big issue that we have in the world today is that we just collectively don't believe that this is possible. It's hard for people to think outside of the world that we've created. And so, like, giving a practical picture of what could this world actually look like what could we actually create, could be really powerful in helping people to envision it. But I would love to give each of you a chance to share where the viewers can find you, any links that you want to share, any projects you have going on. Angie, would you like to start?
Sure. So one of the things I came back with is the ability to see globally, like on a molecular basis. And I was a writer before I had my near-death experience. So what I do is I empower people who want to tell a story, like whatever it is, sci-fi, fantasy, memoir, near-death experience, I empower them. I've distinguished what works to create a bestseller, and I run the most effective pitch conference in the world. My programs are highly, highly effective, and I believe everybody should have access. And so they're also really, really reasonable and all online, but you get a whole lot of support as well. So that's what I do is writing coaching, because we all know when you write it down, it's forever. We have access to that text forever. I got a call from a kid the other day. He had called me when he was 16 years old, suicide. and I talked him down from the ledge, and I hadn't heard back from him. He called me to let me know that he was engaged and to thank me. And I
Mm.
get those emails every day, and it has been, I think the book first came out in 94, that long ago.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, and that's what I give myself to, is empowering people who want to tell their stories. So you can reach me. You can go to Ready to Write Now with, WRITE, readytowritenow.com, or
Ready to write.
you can email me at angie@angiefenimore.com. I'm all over the place. Calliope Ready Coach. I'm on every single social media until you can find me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Al, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I might be giving you a call, Angie, or an email. But what I do now is I'm a member of the Near Death Institute. That's near-deathinstitutealtogether.com. And it is a movement for near-death experiencers, providing all types of things from socioeconomic to spiritual to, you know, talking about how do you share your story. We have on the board somebody who is a TED Talk coach that will coach you to the whole process and has clients with Nike and Microsoft and other Fortune 500 companies. That's primarily what her company does. And we also put out 4 books per year on near-death experiences, UFO experiencers, transformative experiences, and healing yourself experiences. And we get authors to write a book collectively, and the book goes out. But the point is that near-death experiencers, we're all doing these podcasts, and we're kind of like lone wolves at times, and it's a place where it's a collective experience where we could share experiences, support each other, and then also the entire community also rallies to support you as well. You can email me at less than and the number 1 and then the word percent 1111 at gmail.com. That comes from the fact that my prognosis was that I had less than 1% chance of survival. So, and then you can also go to my website, the letter U, the letter R, and the letter L, 1111 URL. You see what I did there? At .com.
That's an easy website to remember. That's very good. And I'm Bill Tortorella, so my spelling of my name is BillTortorella.com. That would be my website, BillTortorella.com. My email is BillTortorella@gmail.com. My latest book out is called The Ninth Level of Enlightenment, The Wisdom of the Light, and it's basically on all the platforms, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon is number 1, I guess, but it's all the platforms throughout the United States and Europe. And there's a book fair going on next month. My book is be represented, the new one. I have another book called Choices, but The Ninth Level of Enlightenment is the one going to be shown. That's in London, England, from the 12th to the 14th at the London Book Fair. And we're doing a book fair in New York City at an American New York Public Library book fair. It's supposed to be a very, very nice book fair as well. And there was one company that was calling me today. That's why I messed up my recorder a little bit there, because they were trying to get in touch with me about doing another book fair. And I guess there's a book fair in Los Angeles next month. They want me out. So might take a trip out there, depending on what they say. Anyway, I would like to stay in touch with some of you as well.
Yes, for
So
sure.
this way we all could get in touch with each other, because it's hard to write everything down from everybody.
Yeah, it is. But I was also going to say with like you, Bill, and you, Angie, and I don't know, Howard, if you're working on something too, but we have the ability to reach 1.5 million people with the collective group NDI, Near Death Institute. So what we like to do is plug other NDErs, like support other NDErs in their projects. So I would love to connect with you guys to, so that we can support you in your projects as well.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
I will be in touch with you. At the Near Death Institute, it's easier for me to get in touch with you at URL11.com.
Probably URL 1111. Yeah. But, either way, I'm on both. So you can reach out.
I've written 4 books. They're available on Amazon, but I think the main way that people connect with me is I have a website, which is howardstorm, STRM.com. And it has on there, it's got some of my paintings because I'm an artist.
Me
And,
too.
and I have a lot of YouTubes. I haven't done them. Other people have put interviews up, and I continue to YouTubes, including this. And I just finished a new book, and it's being published in England as we speak. And I'm working on another book. So because of my age, I'm doing a lot less traveling, and I'm doing the best I can. I do a lot of counseling on the internet with email, get people from all over the world every day, and I respond to every email I get, except for the ones that are extremely hostile.
Uh,
I get a few haters every once in a while, and I just let them enjoy their hatred of me. Anyhow, that's what I'm doing. But I'm also trying to take care of myself physically and spiritually, and my wife and my 3 guides, one of whom I introduced you to, the youngest of the group. The other 2 are
yeah.
and much more mature because they have more to teach about love than people I know.
Oh, I can imagine. They are the best, aren't they? Some of them. Howard, it's Storm, STORM?
Correct.
STORM. Okay.
It's a very cool name, by the way, Howard Storm.
Yeah.
It's a real name
Howard
too.
Storm.
People ask me if I made it up. Sorry, no, I didn't.
That's real easy website too. That's like your name and .com.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm so grateful that you chose to be a part of this. Thank you for being willing to share your stories and your experiences. I will be posting this online the first Friday in April.
Thank you.
All
Nice
right.
meeting you all.
Nice
Such
meeting
a
you
pleasure.
guys.
Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you for watching and listening. Your views, likes, comments, and shares truly make the biggest difference in supporting this channel. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the links to today's guest, as well as my links. You'll find me on social media at Love Covered Life, my website, lovecoveredlife.com, and the Be a Guest link for anybody who would like to be a guest on the channel. I have great news. Love Covered Life podcast is coming available on audio podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your audio podcasts.